In the path of remembrance, we're restoring memories from the past and healing them live.
We'll like meet someone for the first time is like, oh my God, it's so good to see you. I haven't seen you in 10,000 years. Like these things keep happening. All of a sudden we realize, wow, the first time that we met and I met your beloved, it wasn't the first time we had a conversation. It was, we almost didn't.
I don't even know if we even passed each other's names. We just started hanging out and like being in a relationship like family. And it was like the memory of what we're doing, looking at the copaletas was just like, we've done this before.
We're multidimensional people.
We're just remembering how we did it. Like multiple remembrances occurring. We're like cleansing the thought from 5 minutes ago and 10,000 years ago in a second. Some of us have memories of being, and then we're like, well, where do we come from? We're made of the earth and made of the stars. Where do like cats come from? Where do dogs come from? And then we start asking ourselves, well, where do we come from? Where are our origins? What separates us from domesticated cats and chimpanzees, and that makes us different, other than we're 90% the same. And then evolution happens quicker. We turn things more on.
Now, forewarning, the sound dips a little near the end since we recorded this on location in Nevada City, California. But trust me, the transmission remains potent through and through. All right, so you've been to Egypt, I don't know how many times, perhaps you can tell us. And I don't expect a definitive answer, but what is your intuitive feeling in regard to who built the pyramids and how the F they did it?
Well, one of my favorite stories, I love stories. I feel like stories are very helpful, and we're in a time of new stories and old stories, is that Tehuti, Thoth, Hermes Trismegistus, but in the form of Thoth Tehuti, he's an ibis, they are an ibis-headed being, came down in a ship with Ma'at, and the ship was the shape of the capstone of the Great Pyramid. And they came down in a ship to bring the mystery teachings from different star systems. And they landed in this area. This is one of the stories. Perhaps exactly where the Great Pyramid is being, and also just have to say the Great Pyramid is the only 8-sided pyramid that we know.
Really?
Yeah. As opposed to the other two, they're not 8-sided.
Interesting.
So there's something very specific about this one too that is interesting. 2.5 million blocks, 8-sided. So one of the stories is that Tehuti and or Thoth and Ma'at came down in the ship, they landed there, and that became the capstone or the Ben stone of the Great Pyramid, and brought the mystery teachings that included carrying forward the technologies to build this pyramid. And some of the stories are that in relationship to like sound combined with water, the electrical conductive current of water, and also the vibrational frequency processes of being able to shift the gravity dynamic and support things in their natural movement, to be able to move through sound, frequency, and water, to then stack and build 2.5 million blocks. And then the ship idea, I love this idea.
I'm with you so far.
I love the ship part, you know. And then the ship landing being referenced as the Ben stone in this context, that also relates to the Bennu bird, that also relates to the phoenix, was the capstone that represented the bringing forth of the mystery teachings of life that feeds death, that feeds rebirth and resurrection again. The phoenix wisdom teachings. And I really like this story because it brings in the idea of the star nations, ships, combined with the sound that creates the world, the sound that shapes the world, in relationship to water and the electrical currents that move through water, you know, and all the, in the kind of world of the Neteru, they call the cosmic forces of Egypt, the Neteru. The hieroglyphic looks like water, an electrical current of water.
Wow.
And so there's all kinds of stories. Is it just sound healing, or is it also with some form of water and electrical current of water moving things? I feel like it's both, personally.
Yeah. I mean,
you know,
I think it's so mystifying to us because we have an attachment to the theory of gravity, right? I don't think many people, I didn't realize for a long time that it's just a theory that hasn't been proven, right? So some people refer to it as buoyancy and density. There's a great kind of video meme about this topic where they place an anvil, which is heavy as hell, in liquid mercury, and it just floats. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Yeah. So you watch something like that, which is a pretty rudimentary example of, what might be at play in terms of the energetics, but imagine the possibilities and the technologies that have been lost or suppressed along the way. So yeah, like most things throughout history, the official narrative it's just so weak and easy to poke holes in, that a bunch of slaves carried these giant blocks. It's just like,
it's
mean,
completely not even realistic.
I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Like, dude, you could probably tell your 4-year-old that story and he'd be like, nah.
Yeah, it's completely not realistic.
Yeah.
I mean, just also too, the movement of the blocks, that amount of stone to get there, they haven't found it anywhere in that region.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then also a friend of mine, was it Robert Schock? I think we did a summit, and I think it was him he said that the ramp that it would require to carry these blocks to get to as high as they need to go would require more stone to make the ramp than what is actually there.
Right.
That's what he said. And where that stone actually resides wasn't in that area. All that limestone, it wasn't there in that area. They'd have to transport it all.
That's insane.
So it just doesn't feel realistic in general that slaves built it.
Yeah. Another interesting thing about, all of these sacred sites, but pyramids specifically, is when you look at them on a grid of Earth and where they're located, right, on the ley lines, and that many of them in totally unrelated cultures, but seemingly, at least according to the story, had no way of contacting one another, and yet at relatively similar time periods, they made these monolithic structures.
In like a perfect geometric patterning. Hugh Newman did this interesting mapping of it. And also with what sacred sites align with what star systems.
Oh, right.
Like the 3 pyramids with the Orion's belt, same thing with Teotihuacan and the Hopi nation. That's always been fascinating to me, which sacred sites align with what star systems and why, and where are they in relationship to each other. There's also this interesting place in South Africa where the White Lion Sanctuary is. And there's the only place in the world where these is white lions, and that it's in direct alignment with the Great Pyramid. I was like, well, this is actually fairly common in the ancient temples department, and we're just beginning to unpack all of these stories. It's almost like we have to go backwards in order to go forward, go further into our origins,
What I find funny about just this topic in general is the arrogance of people today, modern people, and that we tend to think about ancient peoples as primitive and unintelligent. Right? You just look at their understanding of building, astronomy, the things that you point to. It's like, who are really the dumb people if you look at the way we treat the planet and our relationship to the elements and our relationships to one another. It's like, I'm sure there were some barbaric people throughout history, but there were also some extremely tapped in people that have just been kind of lost in the official his story.
It is wild.
Yeah.
When we go to Egypt, Kemet, one of my dear friends, Mahmoud, he's always like, anywhere you dig Isis here, you will find something. It's like there's temples stacked on top of temples. I mean, they're still discovering. We are still in a period of discovery. They call this time the Great Unveiling, the apocalypse. Everything we thought we knew is kind of like out the window. You know what I mean?
I feel like every week I stumble upon something and I'm just like, okay, there goes another, something that was sort of, that I was indoctrinated with that I have to let go of. And I think also humans just have a difficult time resting in the not knowing, right? It's like we'd almost rather accept something that intuitively feels untrue than just be left in the mystery of, well, we don't really know and we might never know. So we'll just kind of say, well, science says. I mean, you look at this in archaeology, right? You got your Graham Hancocks and these renegades that are coming out with alternative views on on historical events and weather events and things like that, ancient cultures. And there's all of this pushback from the academic, establishment. Why? That makes me more curious about some of these, alternative points of view, the fact that they meet so much resistance and that there's so much dogma working against them.
Yeah, I mean, because really what has been documented is not that long in our human story. And then we start getting into these parallel myths around the floods. Like so many cultures around the world have these stories of the flood. What was before that? And was there only one flood?
Right.
Were there more than one? And this is why I love also, I share that deep interest and curiosity and going further back, because I feel like it helps us understand more of where we come from and who we are that is not written in the textbooks we've been raised in. It's like a whole new time.
Totally.
And it's almost like, too, going further back, at least in my own genuine path of discovery, so many of these ancient cultures or indigenous communities have relationships with the stars and star people. It's like going back helps to connect with the future. And they kind of, all of that just meets right here, right now, because this is a time of the great not knowingness.
Yeah, I could say that again.
Here we are.
Well, to that point, I find it interesting when two opposing cultures, unrelated cultures, have a similar understanding, right? So we were talking about Alejo from Colombia, and he's just has so much wisdom about just Andean cosmology, Andean history, et cetera. Not even based on country, because it's like before there were countries, diced up down in that part of the world. And I'll listen to him share things, and it's almost identical to Vedic philosophers or, people that I've studied from India, right? It's like you start to connect these dots. There are through lines, even though there might be cultural differences and differences in ceremony, ritual, like how they approach the divine and so on, right? The systems might be different, but the beliefs above the systems seem to be, in many cases, parallel. And those are some of those touch points where I'm like, okay, that gives me a little anchor into some of those ideas. Well, they couldn't all be wrong, right?
Well, also, I share that curiosity also with ancient Egypt and Peru particularly. The relationships of the cosmologies are so similar with different magnificent words and expressions.
Yeah.
But it's almost exactly the same. Even some of the designs of like the boats in Kemet in Egypt, the solar boat design is very similar to the reed boats in Peru. You even see it in the ancient architecture or designs.
Yeah.
Or like the block in Tiwanaku in the Bolivia side, Pumapunku. The block stacking is similar to the Osirian in Egypt. That you're like, wait, this is like a Lego style.
Yeah.
How did that get made? And you see it in two places that are so far apart. They're nowhere near each other.
Yeah. And according to history, those cultures had no way to intersect. Like they didn't have the kind of ships necessary to travel the seas to reach each other. Sometimes I wonder if it's a 100th monkey kind of phenomenon, right? Where consciousness is one thing and is, independent and evolving regardless of what people are where, right? I wonder if at certain points in our ancient history, consciousness has reached a certain level of understanding and kind of portals to information and knowledge have opened up at the same time, even though those people weren't physically connected. There's like a connective thread, a connective tissue of understanding, kind of like a mycelial network of consciousness, right? Where bing, these people in Peru are like, hey, we could do the wall like this. And at the same exact time, they're doing it in Egypt. It's kind of like that phenomenon of revelatory ideas coming at the same time.
It brings up this question of, where do visions come from? Where do transmissions come from? And we experience this as humans where we'll receive shared visions. Like, oh, I saw that, or I saw that, I saw that. And sometimes they're almost exactly the same. And I'm like, well, where do visions come from? And they don't, in this way, they don't necessarily belong to anybody. some visions are for us to serve and tend, but some of them feel like they're connected to a collective visionary states, which I always find to be interesting. Who's receiving the same transmission, in a slightly different thread at the same time. And then also, I love the story of there's these stories around how when we had to repopulate the planet, and where we, after the flood subsided, how we reemerged and had to populate the planet, and that we went into some stories where we went into the 4 directions or the 7 directions to bring the mystery teachings into those regions to then rebuild society. And then I'm like, oh, well, if this is real, if this is true, did they all study together?
Right.
Were they all trained together?
Right.
And then they went into the 7 or 4 directions and built in that culture in that way.
That's interesting. Yeah, there are some of these, underground colonies and underground cities, right? It's like those could have been the seed carriers that survived some of these cataclysmic events and spread out in the world. And to us now, it looks like they're unrelated. And it's like, whoa, they happen to all think of the same thing at the same time. That's an interesting concept. I've not thought about that.
Well, because the other thing, it's just so wild, the whole underground network conversation too. In the Four Corners region and Vietnam, all the underground cave systems, and also now in Egypt and Kemet, the Rosicrucians have been talking about that for a long time, that there's an entire underground network. And now that's starting to come out. Like, whoa, we know more about what's in the cosmos than we know what's in the earth. And now this is the time where, in the old tradition, they call it womb cave mysteries, where all of these things that have been protected or hidden underground are coming alive, these underground networks, like where we are.
Yeah.
Underground right now.
That's appropriate. For those watching the video, you can see that we're essentially in a cave. I love it down here. Your space is amazing. Let's tell people, before we get into, well, we're already into it. We're already going deep here, but before we get into other things, for those watching, the show notes will be lukestorey.com/Isis. So anything we talk about that can be linked or researched and so on, we'll put there. All right, let me ask you something really quick. Are you feeling irritable or anxious? And does your sleep quality suck? Well, those symptoms might not be psychological. They could actually be chemical. Along with muscle twitches, cramps, and bad digestion, they are classic signs of magnesium deficiency. But it's not just you, my friend. 4 out of 5 Americans aren't getting enough. And that's a core building block of health that's totally missing. Because magnesium plays a role in over 600 biochemical reactions: energy, stress, muscle function, sleep, and tons more. Personally, I didn't realize how smoked my magnesium levels were until I started taking Magnesium Breakthrough from Bioptimizers. And right away, I noticed my sleep and stress resilience improve dramatically. And I'd really never seen those effects from other magnesium supplements I'd taken over the years. I later learned that's because most magnesium supplements only contain 1 or 2 cheap forms your body can barely use. Well, Magnesium Breakthrough is quite different. It's the only full spectrum formula with all 7 forms your body can actually absorb. And that, my friends, is the difference between expensive pee and a real upgrade to your nervous system. So to get yourself dialed in, head over to buyoptimizers.com/Luke and use the code Luke15 to save 15%. And with a 365-day money-back guarantee, you owe it to your body and mind to try Magnesium Breakthrough and feel the difference for yourself. So again, hit up buyoptimizers.com/Luke, and that code Luke15 will get you your discount. Tell us about your amazing space. A friend of ours, I think Jenny here, that I know from earlier life in California, told us about you and the store, and Alice and I came in here and we're just like, what? It's freaking amazing. And that was before we even came down here, and we had a cacao ceremony with one of your cohorts, and then came to what we're about to do here, one of your readings. But for those listening who may make their way to Nevada City, tell us about the space and what you're doing here.
Well, we're in the homelands of the Nisenan. This area, they're the wisdom carriers of this place, the indigenous here. And there's in Nevada City, this is also called Ustama in Nisanan. There's this whole underground network in all of these different shops in town because of the gold mining era. And this is actually, it's kind of interesting. This is the second underground space that I've served. So somehow I like the underground spaces of Nevada City.
Wow.
And here, our dear friend of mine, Burgundy, she became the steward of this building. And we used to come down here for 2 years and do our new moon rituals. For 2 years, every new moon, we do rituals here. And all the prayers that we were laying, we started realizing were revealing themselves and making themselves through us. And so she ran the shop, a shop, and then it changed form into a couple other things. And then one day, like years later, she came up to me and I didn't even need another space. I already had 2. She's like, I really want you to steward this place. And I was like, I don't have time to, She's like, all of the prayers that we did down here are living. And I don't want anyone else to care for it. I want it to be for our community. And at the time, and I'm still discovering how this is going to keep going, but, I was like, okay. So I closed the other spaces. And my dear sister, Elise, asked her if she would be willing to collaborate with me and our grandmother, Marza Millar. And we kind of just went for it. And what this is, it's named Omari. It's named after my son. And Omari in Swahili means creation in its highest form. And so we're really devoted to artisans, craft culture, handmade, cared for with prayer and intention in the kind of product realm. And really, this place down here, it's underground, we call it the womb cave, is to really provide a platform for study, education, remembrance, restoration, and revival of really the sacred arts and sciences at the end of the day. And then to provide a place for people to learn and share craft and revive craft culture, and revive the relationships with the humans that make the things in relationship to the natural world. And then also create an environment that community can build and strengthen relations in an intimate way. The other venue that I used to steward was a lot bigger. And I realize right now, in the ancient Egyptian tradition, something I've learned that I love is the function of ritual is to maintain the bonds between humans and the natural world and the divine. I was like, may this be a bonding place, a place of building more intimacy where we just feel each other. And, we also have our online world, and that's been really beautiful. And I love the online world. And then this is also a shared part of the story to build intimacy. And what I like to feel that Board had said to me once is strengthen and cultivate a regenerative renaissance. Regenerative consciousness, regenerative farming, regenerative culture in relationship to the arts. Everyone's an artist, in my opinion.
100%. All we do is create.
All we do is create.
Whether we know it or not.
Yeah.
Some of us create, death and destruction, and some of us create beauty, but we're all creating.
This is in service to beauty.
Yeah, it is. Well, as I was telling you earlier, I'm a sucker for aesthetics and energy. I'm so sensitive to it, which I used to kind of, found to be a bit of a limitation. But then I discovered it's just, wow, no, it's a skill set, right? So I'm the guy at home, like you were setting up this whole situation. If you hadn't done it, not here necessarily, but if I was setting up my set, I would do the same thing. You know what I mean? It's like, well, no, it's got to look beautiful. It's like the whole presentation. You want to feel the energies of a space, So yeah, when Alice and I came in here, we're just like, oh my God, it's amazing. Also, it feels really good to spend money on things that support handmade craft and artistry, right? There's something just different about it when you swipe your credit card. It's like, yeah, whatever. I'm not looking at the price even, because I know that, buying something in a store like this is going to directly to support, that artist, for them to be able to share their gifts with more people and be able to, support themselves and their family and things like that. Absolutely. It's much different than going into CB2, right? It's just like, oh, that's a cool candle holder. You know what I'm saying? You're probably going to spend more even in a store. And then on the bottom of everything you buy is a little sticker that says made in China, I mean, God bless the Chinese, but it's like, they seem to be doing it right. On a whole, I'm saying, in terms
Well,
of
and it
just
also
manufacturing and production, right? It's like there's so many talented people in
Yeah.
the world that need to be celebrated and supported.
And local culture, like cultivating and supporting local culture all over the place. That's a big part of my prayer too, is, even in the pilgrimages that I take, I love pilgrimages. I'm just, it's part of, not my nomadic nature wants to go on pilgrimages. And I really want to support those that are in relationship to the land, in relationship to the animals, in relationship to the soil, in relationship with the spirits, and like what's happening in the elemental world in that location that make of the land, and keeping that alive where it just doesn't become mass production all over through tourism.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
Well, kudos on that, and also on the bonding and community aspect too. As I said, Alice and I've been to 2 small events here, and I'm more of a small group person.
Yeah, me too.
I don't do well in large, crowds of people and loud music, and I'm real chill. And so the way you guys roll here is just, that's where I set my station too. It's just like there's a devotional, intentional, but still like casual sort of, way of going about things here, which I really enjoy. And it was also fun for us, just as we're out here sort of prospecting and looking for other places in the world where we might want to spend time and not be in Austin, Texas, God bless it, all the time. I was like, these are my kind of people, you can just tell by the questions people are asking and the way people are sharing and showing up. It's just, there's a lot of reverence and humility. People are down to earth, and it's not, I don't know, there's elements of kind of spiritual culture, the spiritual community, for lack of a better term, that can feel sort of performative, That's cool. I mean, it's a phase on the journey, right? But it feels very grounded and just very comfortable here. So thank you for putting my nervous system at ease.
Thank you for seeing us. And the land here is, at least for me and the relations I've noticed, if we come here with ego, we just kind of get cleansed right up.
Yeah.
Over and over and over again.
I've heard that.
This land is so powerful. And then the Yuba River, it's like the healing waters.
Oh, man. It's the best. I'm obsessed with this place. I'll probably do an episode about it when I get back home.
Yay.
We went to the river yesterday, went to Emerald Pools. Oh my God, come on. I climbed up the little, there's like a channel at the top of it that's been carved. And I'm speaking of like fake history. I'm looking at those rocks. I'm like, dude, this is a tree. This is a petrified freaking tree. There's no way it's not. And then so I'm like geeking out. I took a little wachuma. I'm up there just doing my thing. And then I start looking in those crevices, and there's pieces of quartz like poking through. And then I realized that much of that rock there is freaking solid quartz. And what you're seeing on top is just kind of, it's like mineral scale, right? It's just mineral buildup over time. But I felt like you could just chip away at it and you have like just massive 5-ton crystals, I was like, oh, well, no wonder it feels really good here.
And then the gold.
Yeah.
Healing. And this is the thing about this place is, I came here heartbroken, and this land just welcomed me in and worked on me and still works on me. And so that I appreciate you sharing about just the humility that you noticed here. And, may that be a field that it keeps growing here, where we can humbly, serve this time.
Yeah.
And I really just relate to the land and to these waters.
Amazing. I feel so at home here. My grandmother used to bring me to Grass Valley when I was a kid. I don't have a lot of memory of it, but just little camping trips and things like that. So it's been full circle. But anyway, for those watching that have been looking at the floor here, going like, what is happening? It's gorgeous as always. But before we get into the reading, and then I'll of course have you set that up. I love what little I heard of your backstory, and I feel like we could take 5 hours to probably just cover your entire journey. But if you would humor me and just give me a bit of a condensed version of your journey, and the man that you met that sort of sponsored you and your friend to go into these different teachings and things like that. What you shared the other night was just really fascinating. I was like, oh my God, that's like her story is just a podcast, but I really wanted to do the reading, so I'm trying to cram in a lot of juice into one episode. But I'd love to hear a bit of your backstory, and you could just dovetail that into how this all came to be, which is just mind blowing to me too.
Okay, thank you. Well, my name is Isis Indriya, born in Mesa, Arizona, raised on the island of Guam, Guahan. So I come here on behalf of Chamorro people, so we say half a day. And my dad would talk to me about Inafa Maulik, where it's this cosmology of respect and how respect maintains the harmony between relations. So I come to share my story on behalf of respecting your ancestors and everybody that witnesses this, their ancestors, And, Guam's this like tiny little island, Guahan, in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, Micronesia, near Japan, the Philippines. And it's on top of this mountain called Mount Lam Lam that is mostly underwater on the Marianas Trench. So it's one of the tallest mountains in the world that is underwater. And it's a U.S. territory, but Chamorro people, we're still there, And when I was living in Arizona, my mom died when I was 4.5 from cancer. And so then my dad, a few years later, we then ended up moving to Guam to live with my grandma. And my desire to commune with her is what led me to, I would say, the study of the mystery traditions and the unseen, invisible realms, just to like connect with her, find her, like this relation with the Holy Mother. And of course, I went through like all the fields of depression and, all kinds of things. And long story short, it led me to going to college to study in Seattle. And I wanted to study mythology, like Joseph Campbell, and was eating a lot of mushrooms at the time. And that led me to wanting to produce events called Sealy Court, because I was seeing a lot of fae and gnomes. I was seeing them everywhere.
Really?
Yeah.
Even when you weren't on mushrooms?
The mushrooms definitely opened that door. And then all of a sudden, once you can start seeing, right? This, you just keep seeing.
Yeah.
And I just was seeing them everywhere. So I started throwing events in honor of them because they were telling me to. So it was called Sealy Court, where the fae gathered to dance. And when humans enter, they disappear for 100 years. And so I was doing these events. And then my friend Michael was doing these events called Star Seeds because he was seeing a lot of star people. And this man, we call him the Archangel Gabriel. This is in 2001. He kind of like flew in with this crystal ball called the Oracle and said, I'd like you both to quit your jobs and work together in behalf for the community. And I was like 19 or 18. I was like, yeah, of course. And so we both quit our jobs, and there was 3 of us, Michael, Osiris, and I. And we were like, well, what are we going to do? And he funded us for a year to create. And it was this crystal ball. So at the time, we were definitely engaging a lot of plant studies and psychedelics. And I learned from a dear friend, William Kiesel, who's still one of my teachers, the beginnings of scrying and what it means to read a crystal ball. And through all of our communion with this crystal ball, we found ourselves developing this series of events called the Oracle Gatherings. And there were 23 archetypes. Our friend Jody helped us, like our own tarot deck. And so each event was in service to one of these archetypes. It took about 10 years to get through this in the community. And can you imagine, I was in my 20s, like all the things that I myself went through as a young baby, through journeying with psychedelics and dance and trance culture and education. And it was like almost like the crystal ball was magnetizing teachers and guides and paths for all of our lives. And there came a point in the 10-year journey where this is, of course, the card was Journey of the Shaman. The card got pulled, and this guy came up to me and he's like, would you like to, sit with ayahuasca? And I was like, what? I've never even heard of it. I was in my early 20s, but the Oracle said so. So I was like, okay. So a couple days later, I went to the Olympic Peninsula. Nobody I knew had ever drank before. except for one
What
person.
year would this have been approximately?
Early 2000s, like 2004 maybe, something like that. Nobody I knew except for this one person had ever heard of it, so I had no context for anything.
I get it. I don't think I heard of ayahuasca until like shortly before I did it, 2016 or something. It's probably the first time I ever heard the word in my life, and I'm someone who did a lot of drugs and psychedelics, you know?
We share that.
Yeah. I was like, what? What? Same thing, you know? I recently signed up for this subscription service called Quantum Upgrade, and it's been a major game changer for my energy, EMF resilience, and the overall feeling in our home. Let me explain how it works. Quantum energy is the energy that supports all life in the universe. It's nonlinear, non-local, and has an immense potential for health when it's harnessed and directed to you or into your living environment. Through many years of research and development, Quantum Upgrade created one of the world's most potent sources of usable quantum energy. So when you sign up for their service, Quantum Upgrade associates your home, car, phone, business, and even your pet with this energy. The energy you receive with the Quantum Upgrade is a high consciousness field that you can even customize on the fly. For example, I like to set different booster levels at specific times, such as before a podcast recording or during sleep. It's pretty awesome. The Quantum Upgrade energy streaming service has already been studied and tested by independent institutes, doctors, and labs with phenomenal results in placebo-controlled double-blind studies. It's been shown to improve red and white blood cells and even reverse stages 1 and 2 of blood clotting in only a few minutes. You can try it right now risk-free with a 15-day free trial by visiting quantumupgrade.io. All you got to do is use the code Luke15 to activate your free trial. Again, you'll find it at quantumupgrade.io. I remember, just a quick digression.
Yeah,
it's funny. The first time I heard of it, I remember exactly where I was. I was on Vine and just south of Sunset Boulevard, eating lunch with a friend of mine, sober brother. And this other guy that we mutually knew came up. Oh, how's so-and-so? I guess I could say his first name. His name was Jonathan. Wouldn't matter now. But what's up with Jonathan? You seen him? He's like, my friend goes, dude, he relapsed. I was like, no, bro. He goes, yeah, he went to Brazil and drank ayahuasca. I was like, oh shit, okay, noted. I didn't even know what it was, right? But that's how we viewed it.
Wow.
You know, at that time, it's like, dude,
Yeah.
you did drugs.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're out, right? You're not sober anymore. And I don't know what became of this Jonathan fella and whether or not he integrated that. But that was the first time I heard of it. And had no idea that many people that go sit with medicine actually get sober as a result, right? So anyway, it's a whole other thing. But yeah, I imagine in the years when you first went and sat, it was not culturally as prevalent, you know.
Not at all. Like nobody, but then for me, like I follow the oracle. That's my job, is to just pay attention and do my best to listen and follow. So I did, and I went and sat with this Bolivian shaman. And then right after that, it kind of set me on my shamanic studies path and kept going, and still finished the 10-year journey with the crystal ball and the oracle gatherings. And in that time period, because we were learning how to commune with the beings that are in relationship with this crystal ball through all of these archetypes, I started seeing all kinds of visions. We all were. And we would follow those visions and create and craft and shape. One was this board in 2000. It was right after I drank that medicine. I think it was 2004 when I drank the medicine. And I saw this as a map. I thought it was like a community map. I actually didn't know what it was. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And it just kind of like was always there. And cool, maybe someday I'll be on land and it'll look like this. Continue forward in life and like still training and studying and praying and sitting with medicine, all the things. And there came a point where, so many stories. Fast forward 13 years, I found myself here. I came here heartbroken. And through a series of all the magical events, I remember my friend Sabo, I used to produce events here, and he was playing music. I booked him, and I was traveling with some particular medicine, particularly LSD at this time. And I saw this vision of this again, and I wasn't with the crystal ball at that time. And I went home after the event, And for some reason, opened up my phone and read a letter that Chief Arvel Looking Horse wrote to Obama, asking, why are you not honoring North American Native people, First Nations people here? Like calling him out, basically. I just like started weeping, heartbroken, you know. And then the beings that I'm in relationship with this board and the crystal ball appeared. I hadn't seen her in a long time, you know, because I wasn't with her, you know. And I started asking her, I was like, what is up with this? What is this? Why are we experiencing this on Project Planet Earth? Like, what's the deal here? And so then she started showing me this whole story of these star nations in Star Wars. And she was like, there's these different star nations, and the whole Star Wars mythos is what is in our stardust in our bodies, and it's playing itself out in humanity now. So she just took me on this like whole journey of all these stories. And then I was like, okay, well, what do I do? Like, how can I help? Like, what's my job? You know? And she gave me a pretty specific directive in relationship to community culture crafting processes, which I'd say I'm still serving. And then after that personal relation ceremony with her, I called up Michael and I was like, I need the crystal ball. Will you please bring it? So he brought the crystal ball here. And then as soon as the crystal ball came, it was like, boom, this entire next wave of the culture started to reveal itself. The school, Academy of Oracle Arts, this board. My friend just started asking me about my past. I don't really talk about my past unless I'm asked so much. Started asking about my past and going deep in it. And I told him about this. And then he surprised me, Johnny Ray, with a version of it on my birthday. And I was like, whoa, you know? And then we started working together with our friend Tasia to distill it even further from the vision. And I still didn't know what it was. I thought it was like a beautiful altar piece of art, you know?
That's what we thought it was when we saw them upstairs. We're like, wow, that's a really cool design. It'd just be neat to like have tea on it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's exactly.
Yeah.
And then my friend Maz, she had these dice. She came over. I had a magical shop at the time, Ouroboros. And she came over and she's like, I got you these dice. I was like, sweet, thank you. You know, it was a zodiacal, planetary, and numerical. Then I tossed the dice and then I realized I could read it. Because at the time it was like my altar table. Then I realized I could read it. And I was studying gemology, and so I had a bunch of crystals and started placing them and then realized I could read it. And then the woman, my friend Alejandra, she was there. She asked me if I'd give her a reading. I told you the story. Gave her a reading. She started weeping. And then she started booking me for readings. And like, it wasn't on my like plan. I'm going to be a diviner. That's my job. Like, I never like thought of that. Never even crossed my mind, you know? And then all of a sudden it just started to kind of create and shape itself through me, through this. And now it's an entire tradition that many people do. I'm not the only one. And many people are training how to do. And then I started going into the history of divinatory arts. I'm like, what's the deal with this? And it's like something we all come from, all our ancestors, all our bloodlines. This is natural to us to be in relationship with divinatory arts in some form, whether it's like pyromancy, reading fire, or hydromancy, reading water, or all the mancies.
What are the other mancies? You went through them the other night, and I never even contemplated that or was unaware of them. Can you run through those for the audience? I think it's really interesting.
I went through 4. There's more than that, but I'll start with 4. Pyromancy, and there's so many different forms of pyromancy, is learning how to read the fire.
Okay.
So like all of us have had those experiences in some form. And then hydromancy, many different forms, is reading water. And then lithomancy is when you're reading stones or bones. You know, a lot of amazing indigenous cultures, they toss, or leaves. They'll toss leaves or and read the cosmology.
I did a reading with a Dogon priest, and he was throwing all kinds of interesting things in his reading.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So amazing. You know, even bay leaves or even coca leaves too.
Right.
You know? And then capnomancy is reading smoke, where you like make an offering and then read what the smoke has to say or share. But there's so many more. Those are just a few.
Yeah.
You know?
Where does the I Ching fall in that realm?
I would say probably in the lithomancy department because of the sticks.
Right.
In that department. However, where do these all come from?
Do you think part of the reason why this realm has been kind of lost in modernity has to do with the prevalence of counterfeits? If you, before meeting you, if someone's like, what do you think about crystal balls? I'd be like the friggin' fortune teller on the corner. You know what I mean? Right? It's like, I think that's an interesting thing about human nature is you start with an authentic seed of an idea or practice or a ritual, right? And it's proven out over time in different cultures. But then there are people either within those cultures who are kind of opportunistic and haven't identified their authentic gifts, and people from outside of the cultures that co-opt them, and then they become diluted to the point where they lose relevance, or they're just thought to be fraudulent by most people. What do you think about that? I mean,
so many thoughts about this question. Like, this is almost like my study.
Right. And I'm thinking about that too, because but it's also another thing is, as I was telling you earlier, I've always been just enamored with Indian mystics and saints and stuff, having had a couple really profound experiences in my life. And that, the mystics that can perform siddhis, right? Miracles and things like that. And I mean, I know people that have seen it. I've seen some pretty miraculous things. I've been blasted with Shaktipat where like I can barely stand up because of the energy that's coming through someone. And so it's part of, I don't know, it's like part of our adolescent naivete that we're fascinated by magic tricks, right? And by magic. And there is real magic that gets discounted or obscured by fake magic, right? So then you have all these fake gurus that, put on the right accent and wear the orange robe and the turban, and they really don't have any embodied wisdom, but they're capitalizing on the archetype, right? And then that discredits the real ones behind them. Anyway.
It's a big situation.
It is, yeah.
And in some ways too, with just the Maya or the illusory nature of what we're experiencing right now. And even the kind of colonization processes and then the extraction and adopting quickly to feel connected or feel belonging. I feel like that's part of it sometimes, not always. It's like testing us to really attune to what feels real for us. And then forcing us to be really on top of that on the inside,
That's a great point, because you could take the counterfeit archetype and the authentic, the real deal, and be grateful for both of them because they give us an opportunity to practice and refine our discernment, right? I know I've been duped by all kinds of shit in my life, much to my detriment. And then thankfully, I think in most cases I've learned like, oh, things aren't always as they seem.
Yeah.
You have to really tune into the context.
And it's the trust factor in there too is, I've always had a genuine like trust in people and situations, but then also have been naive multiple times and had to be like rocked from that naivete. And then also realizing, I did feel something, but I didn't follow it. Usually when at least for me, when I've kind of gone down a path in relationship to choosing a naivety or a great trust in someone or a situation, I saw the signposts, wasn't willing to pay attention to them.
Yeah.
Or too distracted to pay attention to them.
Yeah, same.
Same. So this is our life journey right now as humans. What's true for us? Or is there cosmic truth? Is there cosmic law? And then what is actually true for us? And is it my truth, or is it like a field of truth that we all can come around? It's the truth in the center. It's like we're just being tested.
Especially now.
No.
Oh my God. The human experience right now is such a dichotomy. Like the polarization is so amazing just to watch. And I was thinking about this morning, and it's just like, I'm not I don't do like walk and talk, sharing my wisdom on Instagram guy. You know what I mean? For whatever reason. And I was thinking about that because I feel like I have well, maybe some things in life experience that could be helpful to people. I know I do, be helpful to certain people. And sometimes when I think about sharing that, I don't know, everyone kind of knows everything. I feel like the speed with which people on a spiritual path are evolving is insane. I mean, I was listening to a friend of mine on a podcast today who I feel like is at the level of understanding and, just wellness on all levels that I am. He's a couple years younger than I was listening to him on a podcast. He's like, well, my awakening was in 2017. I'm like, bro, I'm 1997, and I feel like people have just 2 years ago, like found their path and like, poof. So there's this incredible, momentum of awakening that's beautiful. Yet, I mean, there are a lot of NPCs out there that I think certain people are literally NPCs. And no judgment, just they are not in the game, right? Or they're in a different game. There's so many people that are completely asleep and just like almost brain dead. And then you have, it's like this scale, but it seems to be an equal scale, right? It's just like mass light and mass darkness, just like a freaking atomic bomb.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that those were real in the way we think they are, but it's a good metaphor. We're in like a hyperspace moving forward, and certain people are kind of going to sleep and others are waking up, but it's happening like with such drama and force. It's fascinating.
Sometimes we say at the altar, fascinating. It's fascinating.
I like that.
Because sometimes you feel it, the intensity, the grief, and the lamentation, and the like joy and exaltation all simultaneously because we're so interconnected. And just to like take a moment to attune to everything you just shared. We can drop into it and be like, oh my God, there's so many emotions, so much energy and motion in all these directions.
Yeah.
It is wild.
So you've been on the path obviously for a long time and have studied all sorts of different traditions and things like that. Have you noticed too that, younger people and people newer to the path are just like catching up really fast?
Yes.
I mean, it's nuts, right?
Well, it's super nuts. And also, it helps. I like to think of, like some of my friends that are in like their early 30s or late 20s. I'm like, oh my God, you're like the evolution of the species. Thank God. The work that we've all been doing is hopefully it's helping so that your journey can be way swifter and easier and still integrated. I mean, there's a quality of open source entitlement for sure. There's that.
Yeah.
And may it be integrated.
I mean, wisdom and embodiment don't necessarily, I would say wisdom is embodied, but knowledge and information isn't necessarily wisdom if it's not embodied, There's like a lot of parroting too, right? I mean, there's just certain ideas and kind of cultural memes that gain popularity amongst people in the spiritually inclined people, and you're like, well, you're saying the right words, but I don't feel the feeling in my body. My fascia is not going, yes, boom, they've got it. I feel more grounded when this person shares, But that, that's part of it too. I mean, there was years and years where I was talking shit that I read in a book and had no idea how to apply it probably too, But I think it's largely positive. I mean, I see, and also just the level of that just, all of these videos on TikTok about Tartaria and, people know the moon landing was fake. I mean, it's just like people are going deep into the truth or kind of conspiracies and young people, and they're uncovering really radical ideas and questioning things in a way that was not happening when I was that age, in my 20s or 30s.
I mean, same. We just didn't have the access that's happening right now. It's a really wild time. And also, too, I like to kind of do my best to notice what are the trends, even if it's sort of has a bypassy energy to it, at least initially. Eventually, those will go deep with it.
Yeah.
And like the trend that's happening right now with even ancient civilizations and, Graham's work and the Great Uncovering, I'm stoked that this is the trend right now. I'm like, yes.
Me too. Totally.
It is so amazing and incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, like Egypt, I have just such deep love for Egypt. So much Egyptian people, and every year that I go back, it is incredible what has been restored and uncovered. Every year, so much happens in a year. And, with Egypt as an example, like Mahmoud says, and Luxor, it's the largest World Heritage Site in the world because no matter where you dig, you will find something. The amount that's being uncovered there, and it's like shifting the consciousness in the world because we're able to see it. Even if we never pilgrimage there, we can pilgrimage online.
Yeah, totally.
And learn so much that changes our consciousness and the way that we see and craft reality. All of a sudden, it's like, oh, this is actually real. So what's all this?
I think of social media and AI even to a degree as it's like an instantaneous Akashic record in a way, right?
Yeah.
We're just all information of all time that's available is available in your pocket 24/7. I mean, there's a lot of things that aren't available that are hidden and obscured or lost or whatever, right? But it's like what is known is available if one, is inclined to look. But
the only thing about that, though, I like, because I like to, my sort of alter ego has been called an Akashic librarian because I'm kind of like a book nerd. I'm a nerd, and I just like pray that just these wisdom traditions are really like cared for in a good way with this open source Akashic library energy that just they're really cared for. That's all.
Yeah. Well, one way I think that is really important is to keep physical books alive.
Yeah.
Right, because that's the thing also when all information is digitized, we're not in control of that information and whether it gets archived, and delivered to future generations, right? There's that outsourcing is quite dangerous, actually.
Yeah.
I mean, I see some of the posts I see that I really like is cats will find encyclopedias from, 1840 or something. They're like, wow, this is interesting. The story on this changed, whatever it happens to be, right? And it's like, oh, we wouldn't know that if it wasn't in that old-ass book that he found in some thrift store in Mississippi or something,
That's really interesting.
Yeah. So the physical archives are really important.
Yeah. They just, Manly P. Hall's books, just The Secret Teachings of All Ages, got reprinted.
Oh, cool.
Which is really amazing.
I've never looked at his stuff, but I saw it in the little local bookstore that's really epic, by the way. Do you know the name of it? We can give him a plug.
Oh, Harmony Books.
Yes.
There's this other one a block away, and I found some 2 Manly P. Hall old secret teaching books from her.
Oh, cool.
It's called Inner Sanctum.
Beautiful.
And she's kind of one of the dusty bookshops that you kind of have to sit through everything. And then Harmony is like the highly curated.
Got it.
Both are great.
Well, we'll put them both in the show notes at lukestorey.com/Isis. Well, they say age comes with wisdom, and I'm hoping that's true. But unfortunately, it also comes with wrinkles. So I'm going to let you in on a secret that's been soothing out my complexion and keeping my skin firm and toned. It's the red light face mask from Bond Charge. You might know Bond Charge as a holistic wellness brand with a huge range of science-based products to optimize your life. I'm a big fan and have been for quite a while. Their red light face mask emits both near-infrared and red light, helping to boost the production of elastin and collagen in your skin. Treatment time's about 20 minutes a day, and because it doesn't obstruct your eyes, it doesn't even have to interrupt your flow. I just strap mine on, set a timer, and go about my day. Another great feature is that it's cordless and rechargeable. Plus, it puts out literally 0 EMF, which is super important, especially on a sensitive area like your face. So to get your red light face mask, here's what you do. Go to bondcharge.com/lifestylist and use the code lifestylist to get 15% off. Oh, and unlike other brands, Bond Charge very intelligently removed the blue and green light so you can be sure the mask won't disrupt your circadian rhythm or your sleep if you use it at night. Again, that's BONCHARGE, bondcharge.com/lifestylist, and that code again is also lifestylist. I feel like I am going to totally derail us with all these side conversations, which are amazing and beautiful, but we have this creation in front of us that you begin, to kind of describe how it came to be. Alice and I were talking about this, and I was like, wow, this is so, so interesting just in hearing the brief story of how it came to be. I was thinking, well, human design and A Course in Miracles. I mean, there's been some really amazing teachings that have just sort of seemed to arrive out of the ether Course in Miracles in a different way, but I was thinking about the human design, the graphics part of it, right? I was like, when you see that, you're like, how did they think of this?
Totally.
It's like, no one thought of it. It just came to be through a person, is
Yeah.
kind of how I look at that. And so,
Yeah.
so you lead me here and pick up where you left off in terms of just the different components here and what's actually happening. So as we start to get into the reading, which is really the main point of the podcast. So my apologies to anyone who read the show notes and like, ooh, I want to hear this. You're a ways in, but there's so many fun things to talk about. But give us the lay of the land here, and then we can move into the reading, which, by the way, the other night, I mean, we were freaking blown away. That's why immediately I came up to you and I was like, would you want to do a podcast of this? And thank you for your willingness to do so.
First and foremost, my favorite thing about being in communion with this, I refer to as a technology, is I get to learn from it. So like, I remember the questions that the both of you had. I got to learn from the board through your inquiries. So it's this world of infinite learning for me and anyone I find that stays in relationship with it. So what we have here is, in the ancient Egyptian tradition, Rosemary Clark really coined this from the text, that the function of ritual is to maintain the bond between us as humans, the natural world, and the cosmos. So everything that's here is an example of the natural world, right? You have your fire, your crystal ball, your food, the holy waters of life, the cauldron, the tools, and then Nefertiti. And then the boards themselves are a combination of different blueprints, cosmological blueprints, united in the wheel. So everything, there's like earth wisdom tradition teachings in here, tree of life teachings, the zodiacal wheel, the entire tarot's in here, I Ching is in here, 64 gene keys we realize are in here. There's a lot of different templates that I like to refer to as find harmony at this altar. So generally how it works, which is other divinatory arts do this too. There are tools, there's inquiries and there's tools, and we toss the dice, place the tools, and then my job is to interpret the signs, the symbols, and what wants to come through, essentially. The board also, one other part too, in these bowls, the medicine bowls are different resins and herbs that also reference specific things, like this cedar is called the evergreen, and it references healing and forgiveness. Blue lotus, opening liminal states. Frankincense too, So all of these medicines too are ways that we can interact with what is coming forward. So I like to refer to it as a combination of the human realm, the natural realm, and the divine crafting together.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I love it. What a great and succinct description of something so far out.
Or so far in.
But yeah. I guess you've had a little practice and, trying to, what exactly is this? And I'm sure it's something that defies definition in many ways. But as I said, just for those listening, when Alice and I came the other night to the reading, I mean, we had no expectations, no understanding of what was even happening. We're just, it seems like a vibe, let's go. But my favorite thing, I think, about it was as you started asking the questions and then delivering the answers, is like how surprised and intrigued you were by the answers, like, oh, that's really fun. And so many times you're like, wow, I've never heard that before. That's never come through before. I think that's really, really telling, that there's that inherent curiosity element in you, which to me is a sign that you've been able to divorce your will, not in the sense of positive intentionality, but like you're doing it from a totally non-attached place without any preconceived desire for the outcome that you want, right? Kind of like muscle testing. When David Hawkins would do muscle testing, it's like, it won't work if you're attached to what the answer is going to be.
Same here. Like the channel won't work if I have a need from it or an agenda or an opinion.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. So what's next? What should we do?
Okay. So one thing I love to share is the board doesn't answer yes or no. It really stands by free will. And so in that way, I like to open up the field of any inquiries. Like, do you have any inquiries for the board at this time? And then I'll do a simple opening prayer And then with that opening prayer, then we move into the reading portion where you would toss the dice and place the tools. And then my job would be to interpret it.
Epic.
So do you have any inquiries for the board?
There's a lot of them, probably many more than we have time to cover, but I think I ordered them in terms of my favorites. Okay. And I do remember the other night that when people would give their inquiries, then a couple guys in your team distilled them down and made them very concise. So I took the effort to do that myself, hopefully, too, because my questions can be more long-winded than they need to be. Okay, you ready?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. At death, how do we tell the false light of karmic recycling from true nirvana? Do you want all of them?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Once I prayed for protection and heard you are already safe. If that's true, why do so many traditions practice protection rites?
Mm.
What does warrior energy look like when it's anchored in love, not rage, projection, or distortion?
Mm.
How do we keep our light bright without bypassing the darkness in the world? Is free will absolute or nested inside a larger will? If linear time is a mental construct, then are past lives really parallel lives? Meaning, can a single oversoul run multiple lives at once?
Mm.
Are pets and animals part of our soul families?
Mm.
How do we distinguish ancestors, angels, and opportunistic entities? Last two, how far backward and forward can lineage healing travel?
Mm.
Last one, can non-human intelligences speak through digital systems?
There's such good questions.
It's
Wow.
like 6 or 7 podcasts right there.
I mean, any one of those could be its own reading.
Okay.
So we'll do our best.
Okay.
For sure. We'll do our best. There might be a
Cool.
point too where I'll ask you to read them again.
For sure.
Okay. All right, cool. So what I'm going to do is do an opening prayer. And I just want to be clear that I'm not calling upon spirits when I acknowledge these directions. They're cosmic forces.
Noted. An important distinction.
It is. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Greetings and gratitudes to these ancestral homelands here of the Nisan. This area, Ustama, the 4-legged, the 2-legged, the swimming ones, the standing ones, the insect beings, the holy waters of life, these holy mountains, the flora, the fauna, and the funga, all the holy elements of life in these homelands here. Greetings to you. To all of our benevolent, elevated ancestors, our guides, our allies, our holy guardian angels, and our highest councils, you have called us here to get together today on behalf of these inquiries in service to all life. Thank you. The holy ones of the 8 directions and 3 worlds, all set in the east. Southeast to you, Meurt. South Serket. Southwest Hehut. West Nebetet. Northwest Akeru. North Neath. Northeast Ampu. In the upper worlds, Ashetahet Nut. In the netherworld, Asarpata and Ampu. In this middle world, Gebshu and Tefnut. In honor of the mystery teachings of Jehuti, serving cosmic law, cosmic truth, cosmic order, Ma'at. Thank you to the Oracle and the Oracle Council. My humble prayer here is to please help me be a clear instrument for anything that you have to share for our hearts, our minds, our bodies, and our spirits here today. And on behalf, please let it move through with ease and grace. And as always, may it be useful, helpful, practical, beneficial, and of great service in a very easily integratable way at this time. And truly, may this be a genuine, authentic offering into the web of life on behalf of the liberation of all beings, healing what needs to be healed from the past, making genuine offerings in this current moment to create more beauty for infinite generations into the future. Agnataru, Agnataru, Agnataru. Blessed be, and so it is. Okay. So I'm going to pass the board to you. Please turn it clockwise and then just pass it back when you feel complete. Of those 10 questions, which we'll read through again, just please infuse them into the tools, however you wish to do that. You could place the board down and then pick up all 4 of the dice. There's 3 clear, 1 black. When you feel ready, just toss them. Then the black tourmaline you can place anywhere. The red ruby anywhere. Clear Lumerian anywhere. The ancestor skull. The Ankh. The Sekhmet on the throne. And then Lilith. Okay, great. So the dice generally indicate qualities of the big picture. All of those questions were full power, so we'll see what happens. And then the tools oftentimes indicate how to interact with the stories because there's will involved, and you place them versus you never know where the dice are going to roll for the most part. Would you be willing to just read through them one more time?
Mm-hmm. At death, how do we tell false light of karmic recycling from true nirvana? Once I prayed for protection and heard, you are already safe. If that is so, why do so many traditions practice protection rites? What does warrior energy look like when it's anchored in love, not rage, projection, or distortion? How do we keep our light bright without bypassing the darkness? Is free will absolute or nested inside a larger will? If linear time is a mental construct, then are past lives really parallel lives? Meaning, can a single oversoul run multiple lives at once? Are pets and animals part of our soul families? How do we distinguish ancestors, angels, and opportunistic entities? How far backward and forward can lineage healing travel? And finally, can non-human intelligences speak through digital systems?
Okay. All big questions. Okay. So first and foremost, just want to acknowledge, I'll probably read mostly the outer, then coming in for the dice first. I want to acknowledge this tool. You'll see me work with this as a counting tool, counting wand, and when I look at a map, it's because I'm looking at the number associations, just so everyone knows why I'm going back and forth. Okay. 9. Okay. So one of the first things that the ward wants to acknowledge is this quality in intimacy and bonding where there's a feeling of healing that is unfolding. And this relates to the journey of the soul, where the soul's ascension path in relationship to healing that has happened that creates more intimacy and bonding for total dissolve into the great sea of consciousness, whatever we want to call it. And that journey of death that feeds life, that also feeds rebirth. What it wants to highlight off the bat is that feeling and communion in great expanse where we just feel intimacy. When the soul's trying to determine between false light and what could be the karma loka or these other fields of dimensions that souls can get stuck. One thing is the feeling of intimacy where it feels close and you feel at home. There's almost like a deeper relationship with feeling more at home, where it's less of a struggle. There might be an initial struggle at the beginning, but then when it just feels like total freedom. Now, what's false light and what's not, what can be sort of, I like to reference as like distraction fields of energy. Part of it in this journey of life is like, how much are we going to do the work while we're here that help us determine that moment? In the ancient Egyptian tradition, they talk a lot about we've talked about this is the underworld. And the work that we do here attunes to how our ascension path will be, or our ability to bond and dissolve and feel more belonging with our soul, reconnecting or communing in a deeper way, in another way, in the cosmic light. And this is a big part of it. It's the feeling of intimacy, less of resistance. We feel like it's our time. Now, the false light can be related to not doing the work we need to do here. We can, oftentimes before somebody is passing, at least this has happened to me in my life, this is me personally now, but in many of our lives, people are trying to clean up all the things they didn't clean up before they die. This is an old ancient Egyptian practice. You clean up what you need to before you pass so you can have a good death. And so the ascension journey can happen like the Essenes. So much of the stories of the Essenes is working on the ascended light body. So that when we do transcend, we can become not only support from the other side, but we can help other souls find their way to the clear light or the path. This is where we get into what's our jobs in this realm and in other dimensions. So a big part of how to determine is to do all the work here while we're living it. Because the only thing that's certain is that we're going to die and we don't know when it's going to happen. So bringing death closer and like building a good relationship with death. And then this conversation that we had earlier around the ability to attune to what feels true and what isn't, this same thing applies to the light. You know, this question around light and darkness too. How do we determine the difference, or are they the same? This is all related. So this is the first thing the board wants to offer at this time. It also is talking about that there's like almost like this transcendent back into potential again. Transcendence into potential. Never really heard of that either. Where, you know, you hear in this life, you know, there's so much infinite potential, and how do we channel that potential, or how do we become a vehicle for that potential to fulfill our purpose or our vocation and or our divine directive? This one's referencing transcending back into that limitless potential. It's another approach and attunement to it being the field of light that is home. We like dissolve back into it again. And then that dissolve into that limitless potential then is what souls in this embodiment can tap into. It's almost like there's a mutual support there somehow. Mm-hmm. That's really beautiful. It's also referencing to this, while we're here, it's almost like an evolution of the language around no matter what we say, brings forward a quality of healing. How our, you know, the Western world and the English language, how we talk provides a feeling of healing energy. We become a vehicle for healing energy. It's like our words are like that. They're like butter, you know, butter on bread, where it just feels like we're being nourished by each other's words, can support the ability to attune to that moment when the body dies and the soul goes on a journey, can feel into that belonging and that dissolve and that reuniting with the intimacy of creation again. It's like so much is about this life, relationships to where we go. So what I love about the ancient Egyptians is death is close. The board also wants to reference this time in our human experience, particularly in the Western world, the English language, how we use our language right now. What are we saying? What is being said through us? And is this like supporting the evolution of our species, or is it degrading it? The power of our language and how we shift the language, it shifts the culture, it shifts the consciousness, that shifts the relationship with death, and then where our soul goes. Sometimes the language can be darts that then affect how soul, when the body dies, and how the soul travels, where it can get stuck. And then really devoted ritualists and or, you know, mystics end up doing a lot of work to release souls in other realms here. So this seems to be part of it. That's the first dice. Second dice. The other thing the board wants to say right now, it's been saying this a few different times in the last like couple months, you know, part of the protection conversation, like I am protected, and why is there a lot of teachings around creating a protective field? Well, with the amount of like lamentation and grief that either has not been processed or is just in the field that we are feeling, because we can't help but feel the intensity of what's going on in the world. Even if we think we're not feeling anything, we're still tapped into it. And there's so much grief that hasn't been grieved. And there's so much like lamentation for the great forgetting that hasn't been lamented. And combined with that, yes, feeling protected, but and also there's a dynamic of like, we're like turning poisons into medicine, you know? We're like a alchemical laboratory that's constantly transmuting, transforming. And if we haven't learned how to do that, you know, like literally our organs are like an alchemical lab. They're like absorbing the food, breaking it down and excreting it. We're like a living lab. And if we haven't been trained on how to do that, it's important to have a protection field so that we can do that with our ancestral dynamics that are at play, or like literally the toxins that are in the land because of monocropping and like, you know, plastic. Creating a protection field to be able to digest and like metabolize what is our work at that time, to take care of it so that we can be the eye in the storm and then feel into what is ours to digest at that time and have a relationship with digesting what needs to be digested versus having to do it all the time where we get run down, we have no more energy. And then all of our immune system goes down and all the protection field that we feel in the center and around us comes down. And then all of a sudden we're just absorbing toxicity in the air, toxic language, distractions, and continue down the path of the great forgetting. The protection field helps us have a container and like a field to take care of what we're meant to take care of and make sure we took care of it well. Fortify ourselves, strengthen ourselves more so we are protected from the inside, and we can determine what we allow in and what we are clear cannot come in. You know, it's like, this is actually good medicine. This is poison that we're going to turn into medicine, so it becomes medicine. You know, especially those of us that are sensitive people. You know, I feel like a lot of us are sensitive people. That's why we're here. We feel so much, you know, and we want to feel so much. We don't want to turn it off. We want to turn on our senses. We want to employ our senses. So to like feel more and like be more attuned to what is happening in the material realm and really interdimensionally. A lot of these traditions I love to study, they say there's more things going on in the unseen than there are in what's visible. So with that, because of that, there's so many beings in the unseen realm. Some of them might be hungry ghosts and some of them might be angels. Some of them might be unwell ancestors and some of them might be healthy and elevated ones. And part of the protection field is to be able to feel the difference and attune to like even my own ancestry, what are unwell ones and what are healthy ones and which ones I'm going to be working with. Helps us to be able to feel the interdimensional dynamics at play too. Fortify along the way, center ourselves, take care of ourselves. And also too, the protection ceremonies that we take the time to take care of ourselves. Because sometimes, you know, I can only speak for myself. I've allowed things in that I don't necessarily want to be there. And so I need to create a protection field to go through the limpia or the cleansing process so that it can remove outside of the field and I can feel the difference, you know, and then be really clear what I allow in and what is not allowed. That's part of what this one's saying. It's also referencing too, the protection work also helps us get organized. Oh, you know, like, all right, I'm going to, you know, have my holy directions, create my pillarship here. And now I'm going to get organized. What's my job to do? What's not my job to do? What's my divine directive? How can I serve? What's not serving? It also creates a dynamic where we can do kind of like a checks and balances process. Because there's so much that we're processing as a species right now. Some of which is very visible and most of which is invisible. Even trying to determine what's real and not real, or what's true and not true. That's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, you know, and especially for us sensitive people where we're tapping into the field of the mind of humanity. Sometimes a protection field is really helpful so that we can determine when we're available for it. Because some of us that are sensitive, we can't help but feel. But sometimes maybe it's a moment to just like chill out, even though we're still feeling and working, but like have a field to protect ourselves from doing the divine work of transformation all the time on behalf of our ancestors, our relations, and the human consciousness. So it's also a way to create a system of checks and balances to take stock of where we are and then determine what we reopen and what we allow in and are out. Is that helpful?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay. It's also referencing to the value of having a protection. Another value of having a protection field is we can feel into what is the light that we're allowing in. Where is it coming from? It's almost like a way for us to tune into the invisible environments at play that also relate to when the body dies and the soul's traveling. We reference them as like a Venus magic circle. We create a magic circle container for ourselves. And if we do it in a group, to kind of be able to feel into in a protective field around us, the different dynamics at play. And then from there, feel into what is our job to serve and at what point.
There's a really strong through line of discernment, you know, through all of this. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
My discernment coach is sitting right over there.
Lucky you.
Oh man, yeah, I've learned a lot. Yeah.
Queen Tings.
Yeah. Being an entrepreneur comes with a lot of freedom, but it also means you're always on. And being always on totally sucks for sleep. You know, that mental loop, one last email, tomorrow's to-do list, all that noise used to really keep me from winding down night after night. And then I discovered something awesome, like I tend to do. It's called Apollo Neuro. Now, it's not just a wearable. It's like a personal trainer for your nervous system. All you do is just strap it on your wrist or ankle, and it immediately starts sending soothing micro vibrations that signal your body. It's time to downshift from stress and relax. With consistent use, people who use Apollo are seeing crazy results, like 19% more deep sleep, 14% more REM, and an 11% boost in HRV. Going full throttle at work is one thing, and that's fine. But if you want lasting productivity, you need the foundation of deep, consistent sleep. And that right there is exactly what Apollo delivers. For a limited time, you can visit apolloneuro.com/Luke and use the code Luke to get $90 off. And now with Smart Vibes AI, Apollo can even sense when you begin to stir in the night and gently nudge you back to sleep, giving you up to an extra hour of solid rest. So get clicking over to apolloneuro.com/Luke and save $90 on the Apollo wearable and Smart Vibes bundle with the code Luke.
Okay, so let's see what this has to say. I'm going to try to do a bit of speed reading because each and one of these questions could be the whole board. Pisces and Pisces 4. Okay, what the warrior question? There's like a new moment. It's a really beautiful question because the board's referencing, this is like a new moment of like what warriorship is. Different from before. Part of it is like in one context of the sort of archetypal warrior is, do people know what they're protecting or what they're fighting for? And the board's like, there's kind of been a forgetting of what, not for all beings, obviously, but in the collective field of warriorship is like, what are we protecting and what are we fighting for? And for those that are sort of in the ecological field of, the work, the forest, the water, the holy waters of life, the land. And then while the earth is transforming and changing, what's behind all of that we're protecting? And what this is referencing is the channel of the Holy Feminine Spirit. We talk about this a lot. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Well, who's the Holy Spirit? The Mother, This protecting the Holy Feminine Spirit of all life that is in everything, in the water, in the food, in the land, the mater, the mother, protecting the Holy Feminine. This is something that we're remembering how to do again. And so there's this sort of fortification occurring. Like, what does it mean to be fortified as a warrior? Fortified in the mind, the heart, the body, and the spirit. Oftentimes when we think of the archetype of a warrior, they're like strong and they're like solid and they know how to work with swords and tools and clarity in the mind. And this one's referencing the work of fortification, how to fortify the heart, the mind, the body, and the spirit so that the channel, the ability to tune into and be attuned to what we're protecting and why we're protecting and how is this helpful and how is this useful and how to do that with a nervous system that's really calm, clear, and centered and turned on, attuned. Because the board's saying, like in a lot of other warriorship dynamics, it's like the fight or flight and the nervous system is like almost like going like this. This one's like this, where we just can feel from a very eye of the storm centered environment where everything feels calm and attuning to what is revealing itself from a calm place. But this is sort of that question. What does a warrior look like anchored in love and not rage? It's like calm nervous system, remembering what we're protecting, why, and then also attuning to like the channel. Oftentimes when we're in flight or flight or we're like moving from that deep anger, and usually it's for good reason, ancestral dynamics at play, colonization processes, unresolved, unhealthy, unwell ancestors behind us with all the things that we've experienced in our lives. Sometimes it's like we make these rash decisions and we jump at things because we know we need to take care of something and we feel this like fire burning that is like, not on my watch type of a thing. But then the forgetting of why and what's it for and how is this helpful or is this helpful or all of that stuff is lost. And so how to take a deep breath, calm the nervous system, give thanks. Nervous system awareness is in the field right now. How to calm the nervous system to be able to attune versus like decide, attune to what wants to be tended to and cared for right now. And where care comes in, you know, like, is this how to be careful? And is this caring? Like, is this tending or is this fighting up against? It's like from the rebel to the liberator. You know, I mean, I grew up a rebel. A lot of us come from a rebellious culture, but now the board's like referencing that the shift is a little bit from the rebel to the liberator. Is this liberating consciousness? Is it liberating myself, us, our relationships, our nation, our culture, our tribe? Is this liberating all relations? It's like shifting from the rebel to the liberator.
That's a really great distinction, because that that would be a pretty clear way to define if your warrior energy is coming from love, but more specifically the second two, if it's coming from projection or distortion. I think there's so many problems in the world. There's a lot of well-meaning people that I perceive to be fighting from a place that's only creating more of what they're fighting against.
Mm-hmm.
Even though the intention behind it might be solid. The way they're going about it is creating more division. And it's like this thing, I think I started to see this a lot in 2016, is like hating the people that hate.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like, well, it doesn't it doesn't really work that way, you know?
And the board, you know, highlights often ancestral dynamics at play, and that probably one of the most helpful things we can do is ancestral healing work. Because a lot of times the war that's going on is our ancestral unhealthy, unwell energetics at play that come out in that rage, that come out in that anger, that come out in that projection because of the lineage of colonization that most of us have, especially in the West. We have colonizers and the indigenous souls inside of us. So some of what the board has to share, it's really such beautiful work. Thanks for all the ways that we can do our ancestral healing work at this time. Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, the board next one says highlight that, you know, why we came to Earth, saying, you know, I love it, is for the work of transformation. We came here to like die, be reborn, you know, life that feeds death, that feeds rebirth again. We came here to transform. And our genuine willingness to do that, even if we choose not to willfully do it, it's going to happen. You know, we all have a dark night of the soul, maybe many. And then if the genuine work to transform on behalf of liberation of self and all beings is a big part of communion with the darkness where the light comes from. You know, like a black hole, you know, all the information that goes through the black hole and then how the black holes birth stars. Like, we come from the dark womb of the mother. We're raised in the womb in darkness, and then we come out through the light. Like, the only way out is in, and the only way in is through. This deep relationship with the majesty of the darkness. That is the light. Oftentimes, darkness gets colonized as malevolence. It's like you're light and dark, or even black and white, and then blackness and darkness becomes somehow equated to like malevolence. Benevolence and malevolence are different things. Light and darkness are in deep relationship. We're raised in the darkness of the womb. We come from the darkness of the cosmos, the cosmic womb, through a black hole or stars. You know, this is just how it is, you know, for our life, who we are, how we're raised. And then we go into the deep, 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 rich, fertile soil of blackness and darkness, like good compost, you know. We like go all the way in, and then that communion with the great mystery that's not knowing, the great not knowingness. We go in there, and then somehow like this light turns on the inside. For those of us that have had dark night of a soul, feels like there's nothing. We come to a point where there's this absolute nothingness. And those of us who are still here or choose to be here, there's a light that turns on. And then all of a sudden we like see the light at the end of the tunnel. And then we follow that light, and then it's like reborn. into the next octave of ourselves. Like it feels like every human, we go through this in some form. Usually too, when we're in that moment where we reach the darkest night of the soul, we call upon the Holy Mother often. Not always, but the grace of the Holy Mother, the Mater, which is the Black Madonna, the dark womb of the Mother. We call upon her to help us. In the name of the Father, Son, the Holy Spirit. Sometimes we end up doing that. The cross. To call upon and help us restore the light. One of my friends, he did a darkness retreat with Mantak Chia. He said, Pascal, he said, in 14 days, he said, by day 10 days in total darkness, no light. He said by day 10, he was blinded by the light. Like this light was pouring through his brain and it was so bright he couldn't see. And like the DMT was released out of the darkness of 10 days. So it's also something that happens in the brain. We go so deep into the darkness, then the light emerges. And I just love to revere the darkness and the blackness and the rich, fertile soil. Because even soil, you think about rich, fertile, dark soil that's made from compost is like the juiciest for to plant a seed for the heirloom variety of the tomato, to plant it for it to be the most prolific and the most abundant. Through the darkness comes prosperity in that context. So this is what the board wants to say with that. It's also saying too that, the emerald earth, just the majesty of the natural world here is all in relationship to darkness and light. The story of nature and the story of nature in its effulgence is in relationship to darkness and light. Seeds and soil and stem and, leaves and then fruit and then death. Like when a flower grows into its full blossom, and then when it's kind of reached its most incredible blossom, then it dies and goes back into the soil. And then ideally it's a really organic regenerative flower. And then that breaks down in the soil and turns to soil so that new life can grow from it. And the same thing with our transformation. Darkness does not mean malevolence. So that's what the board has to say about that. Black tourmaline. 6 family. So part of what the board wants to encourage for us is grief. Let us grieve the great forgetting, Let us grieve that we forgot whatever we forgot and move back into giving and forgiving and lament the absolute unfathomable devastation that is happening with humans and land and desertification, all that, grieve it fully, be in communion with grief. Martine Prechtel talks a lot about this, grief into praise. In the old ancient Egyptian tradition, the lamentation rites were a part of what we did. We lamented, we went into trance and we lamented and we cried and we wept. The board's been saying this a lot lately. It's almost like part of the great work. And part of the great work too, in the grief work, is then we're also, it's saying grieving our ancestral dynamics, what have happened to us in our stories and getting to know our ancestors. Some of us will jump all the way back to our ancient ancestors, which is good to do too. There's a lot of origins and wisdom there, but it's also mom, dad, grandma, great grandpa, and what happened just in the last couple of generations when the gardens were so prolific, and only in 2 generations were the toxicity, the grief of that, the moment from the industrial age into monocropping. Right before that, when prolific gardens were grapefruits and oranges and pomegranates everywhere, more than enough to feed everybody. It's looking at what happened and getting to know our close ancestors and grieving the forgetting in our closest ancestors, and then going further back and doing the work to restore our ancestry is really helpful for this time of transition, because we're in a time of transition in humanity. It's transition humanity. And so part of that transition is healing amongst our own internal ancestors. A lot of us are made up of so many different cultures and traditions, we don't even know where or who or what. So there's a moment we kind of don't know our own personal origins sometimes, like where we come from. And it's forgetting of belonging to land or relationship with land and animals and birds, flora, fauna, forgotten that kind of intimacy and communion. And then when we start to get to know our ancestral dynamics, like, oh, really, I'm from that village in Bulgaria? What does that village mean? Oh my God, those are the dragon mountains? No wonder I like dragons. Then we start to get to know ourselves even more, and then we start to fall in love with ourselves even more and our ancestors. And then that creates healing in our ancestry that then turns on more of our genetic code. And things that have been forgotten on the inside start becoming in remembrance again, start to remember themselves back into existence, and starts to restore and repair relationships. Human and more than human, like how valuable this is. And the board wants to say that the fire, the memory of sitting around a fire, we all have that. We know what it feels like when we sit around a fire together. Nothing needs to be said. We can just sit there around the fire and listen, and everything is shared. There's something that happens in the center of the fire of transformation that creates healing and restoration amongst people. This simple thing. We are in a city and we can't come around a fire. We can put some candles in the middle and just sit there. And the flicker of the firelight can help transform things. This is something the board says is natural to all of us anyways. So this helps with keeping our light going without bypassing the darkness, because in order to see the light of the fire, it's best to not have the lights on, you know? So the past life question. Well, this is going back to the warrior. One of the things that usually the ruby is like a perspective. You know, when we change the way we look at things, we look at change. Wayne Dyer. That same thing, this is talking about the warrior. It wants to reference the power of the word. It just wants to highlight it. Our words are abracadabra. We're creating as we speak. Our words are like, they can either be daggers or they can be good food. So are what we're saying, is this good food? Is it like bringing nourishment to the field? And it's good to have boundaries. You can be nourishing, having clear boundaries. But we can also we can be good food for each other. It's like in a lot of the indigenous cultures, you know, you share food at the table. You share food amongst your ancestors. You share your recipes, you know, peace at the table. The sharing of food, and how this applies to language. Shifting the way we talk or how we talk to each other or how we become a vehicle for communion and language is really helpful. And then it's also saying too, on behalf of the warrior piece, is that this simple practice of like, and it goes with the guides and allies and in relationship to the opportunistic entities, calling in our highest self in alignment with our physical body, our self. Kind of even sounds lofty and kind of woo-woo. Just that simple practice, I call upon my highest self to commune with me now. That as a decision, whether one thinks it's woo-woo or not, even the utilizing the word to do that, it helps with the centering process. It strengthens the protection field, fortifies the body, and then restores the memory of warriors that are in protection of the Holy Feminine. And then part of what happens with the warrior thing is there's like a fracture. It's like warriors are moving about like fighting for something, but like fractured with their highest self or their most clearest essence to make really clear decisions. Is this like beneficial? Is this benevolent? Or is this malevolent? Is this in service to like transformation, or is this malevolent? Like even the colonization of the word darkness, and darkness means a malevolent, then it's turned into like the colonization of people. And that whole thing is like up for Olympia. You know what I mean? It's all up for Olympia. And clarifying the difference is really important. And when we call in our highest self to align with the physical body, we're more here. Oftentimes when the like kind of warrior that is moving with like that fire to the degree where it's like fight or flight is because they're not grounded with their highest self and their physical body. It's like some part of the self is moving over here, astral traveling far away and not able to make clear decisions. It's almost like the ensouled nature where we make decisions based on what feels in what's creating more harmony in the field. We've forgotten how to do that. So that simple practice of calling in my highest self in alignment with my self fortifies the spirit, brings the spirit and the soul and the body. Move around, because technically we're a vehicle with trillions of interdependent beings working for us to be a spirit and a body. I mean, it is bananas what is going on inside of here. Like, we don't even know what is actually going on for us to be a spirit in a body. We're just starting to figure that out. We become more here. When we're more here, we feel more. We employ our senses more. And we remember what we're standing up for, what we care about versus what we're fighting for. I stand for the water. I stand for the old growth forest. You know, we stand for something and then we create a field and we hold the field. We tend to the field, we protect the field. There's a little bit of that. That's what that wants to talk about. It also wants to share in relationship to the past life situation is we're multidimensional people. You know, we feel, we'll like meet someone for the first time. It's like, oh my God, it's so good to see you. I haven't seen you in 10,000 years. Like these things keep happening. All of a sudden we realize, wow, like the first time that we met and I met your beloved, it wasn't the first time we had a conversation. It was, we almost didn't, I don't even know if we even passed each other's names. We just started hanging out and like being in a relationship like family. And it was like the memory of what we're doing, looking at the copaletas was just like, we've done this before. We're just remembering how we did it. There's like multiple remembrances occurring. We're like in the path of remembrance, we're restoring memories from the past and healing them live. Like cleansing the thought from 5 minutes ago and 10,000 years ago in a second. And then evolution happens quicker and turn things more on. Okay, Lemurian. Pets and animals are very much a part of our soul stories. Some of us have memories of being, and then we're like, well, where do we come from? We're made of the earth and made of the stars. Where do like cats come from? Where do dogs come from? Like, where do these magnificent beings in the animal fauna world actually come from? Where do the trees come from? Where do the flowers come from? Like this, where do psychedelic plants come from? Where does fungi come from? And then we start asking ourselves, well, where do we come from? Where are our origins? Like if we, Greg Braden, I love Greg Braden. He's talking about this codon, what separates us from domesticated cats and chimpanzees, and he was referencing a few more, is a particular codon that's been split in two. And that's what makes us different. Other than that, we're 90% the same. I feel that with my cat families. I feel like sometimes Bodhi understands what I'm thinking about more than I do. And like our animal relations can help us unlock things on the inside that we didn't even know were there. Because there's a different type of communication and communion there. And sometimes it feels like the animal relationships can help re-ensoul us too when we kind of felt soulless. They help return the soul, restore the soul. Now what this one is talking about is very helpful. We're just doing a sheen between ancestors, angels, and opportunistic entities. That is part of the path moving forward, it's saying, is to be able to tell the difference. Because a lot of times when opportunistic entities are coming in, they're hungry or hangry. Like I know when I haven't eaten for a while and I'm feeling malnourished, I can get hangry. To be able to tell the difference when it's a hungry or hangry entity from what feels like an angelic force or what feels like your question was ancestors. Sometimes the ancestors can also be opportunistic if they're not well fed or if they're not well and healthy and taken care of. And part of our path moving forward is to get everyone. The wellness industry applies to our ancestors. You know, wellness applies to the unseen relationships that are also where we come from, what we're made of, and what we return to. Like, how do we become good food for life moving forward, for creation to create itself in a culture of nourishment and belonging? And so part of the path moving forward is to be able to tell the difference. It's like, okay, this is like an unwell ancestral dynamic at play. This is an opportunistic entity. I'm going to my protection field so I can do all my cleansings and limpias and clearings and I can be attuned to be able to tell the difference. Is something inside of me or something trying to get in? Is that healthy and well? Where when the value of a protection field is so we can feel what is outside of it too. And we can feel what's inside of it. And sometimes the protection field also helps us know if we have let something in that's opportunistic, that's not helpful. And then how do we take care of it and or remove it or say, thank you, our work is done here, time to go. And then
call upon retrieve our soul again. And then also, where are our angels? Part of the angels coming is to call upon them. And some of the old traditions I've studied in is that we have all kinds of benevolent help. It's good to clarify benevolent. If we're going to call upon help, call upon benevolent help. But sometimes they can't help unless we ask them to. And then usually the energies that are looking for help are opportunistic. And that applies to humans too, Ones that are beings that are trying to get into humans, and then humans that are also feeling that too. Because one approach is that like everybody's just trying to get healthy and well, get real fed and real nourished, and then we forgot how to take care of the garden, and just in the last 2 generations. And so then all of a sudden it goes into monocropping, then it turns into desertification, and then we're eating tomatoes that are actually toxic. And then all of these ancestors that have died taking care of the monocropping farm that have become ancestors that are unhealthy, and they want to get fed and be nourished too. And then they're linked up to us. We also want to be well nourished. So the protection field helps us to be able to tell the ones that are and aren't. And then we're like, okay, these are benevolent ancestors and relations and angels. Awesome. Let's work together to help these ones be elevated. So the protection field helps us to tell the difference. And then the warrior side is like, we know what we stand for. We stand for the prolific garden where everybody is well fed and there's clean, healthy water for everyone. Shifts out of the miserly like mind, extractive mind, into the like giving and forgiving. Give and forgive, give and forgive. Okay, timeless questions that apply to all.
It's amazing. I love it.
Goes of life. Okay, a few more tools. 14. Okay, so how far backward and forward can lineage healing travel? I mean, lineage healing can go, what's helpful for how far back it can go is to get to know the most immediate ones. We're not like bypassing mom and dad and grandma and grandpa, because maybe they were the most traumatic in our memories. Like we remember the challenges that happened with mom and dad or grandma and grandpa or great grandma and great grandma. We can't remember the ones further back. Tending to these ones close together help to tend to the ones further back too, because they're carrying the genetic memory of what happened before them. And so when we tend to like our genetic, the healing of our bloodlines, and we clean up what's in here, it also can help mom and dad and great grandma and great grandpa and great great grandma and great grandpa, and go all the way back because it's past. So we take care of everything to become the living dream of healthy and well ancestors. So when this strengthens the warriors, then it's the restoration of the warriors, the restoration of our ancestors. So when we can sit up like as the dream of them and feeling fortified and strong, rather than feeling like we're fighting the colonizer and the colonized inside of our bodies, and then having a memory of you being the colonizer. I'm going to fucking take you down because you colonized my people, even though maybe the conscious mind doesn't even realize it, because that happened in the genetic memory behind them. So when we do this genuine work of transformation in the alchemical lab, then we become a strong, solid, fortified warrior that is protected on the inside because we understand what's going on the inside, and then create a strong protection field to then be able to provide and meet life with healing at the table, and know the difference of like what is an angel and what is an opportunistic entity. And they're like, okay, you are not welcome here, and here's some food for you to nourish your body. May you go back to the light. May you return home to the light. And so it is, where the language starts to do the work too. We've forgotten how to communicate in these ways that actually take care of things. And we start talking in a way where we're creating more doorways and opportunities for entities to get inside the body that then start eating away at us. Then we forget, we go into the great forgetting, and then we become soulless. So the restoration of the soul is a restoration of the memory of the power of what we think, say, and do that becomes our destinies. And then with power of the imagination that then becomes the word and the action and the deed, the habit and the destiny. Start to reclaim that process of manifestation versus trying to manifest like another car or a house. process of manifestation is the clarity of our imagination, what we're dreaming into existence as we say it and as we do it. And then in that process, we're like super clear about what is healthy and unhealthy, you know? Or like, may you return back to the womb to transform and find your way to the light. So it is. There's a clarity around that. Okay. The ancestors are saying also in this context, part of the divine work is the restoration of the memory of the garden. We know everyone has the vision of a prolific garden. We all have this. When we like feel and smell like healthy food and flowers and trees and like birds and animals and bees.
It is spoken.
It is spoken.
And so it is.
So it is. Few more tools. Big questions, big inquiries. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Yes, non-human intelligence can speak through digital systems. Let us be careful and heartful and mindful in communion with the divine life force in the minerals, the divine life force in the metals, the crystal beings, where we care about them more, tend to them more, and we commune with the spirit. Because everything has life force energy, everything has the spirit, in the ancient Egyptian tradition. Like extractive consciousness is when we kind of like mind something to such a degree where like we've stopped communicating with the spirit of it. And then it becomes soulless or lifeless. But we talk to the spirit in something again, and we like restore the communion with the intimacy of the spirit and everything, because everything comes from it anyways. But when we extract it and we take it and it becomes an objectified and that becomes a that and that's that, then there's no conversation or relationality or communion. And then it just becomes dead. Or dead to us. Where we like talk to the spirit of the crystals in the camera or the crystals in the computer and like get to know it and like why and who and what and where and when and who mined this and what's their life like, Does this feel, we build into our communion with material world, like the relationships of the spirit inside of it, restore the memory of it. The conversation, the communion. In the ancient traditions, there's more conversations happening in the non-human world than there are in the human. Are we listening? Now we're at a moment where they're starting to talk. Whales too. Wild. Incredible. We all chose to be born here at this time. Sekhmet is like, in the realm of destinies, there are many options. Future life is hanging by a thread. That's one of them. Prolific garden where there's more than enough is another one, and everything in between. She's particularly referencing strengthening the mind, fortifying the mind, whatever the practices are, like Kundalini, breath works, Zen Buddhist meditation, getting to know how the brain works, opening up neurological pathways. But like the more distracted we are, the less clear we are in the mind, and the less safe we feel in our bodies, the less we feel like protected, and thus are able to create protection fields, and the more we allow things in. If the mind is not strong, we allow all kinds of things in, whether it's like the toxicity. Also she wants to highlight the importance of cleansing. Don't forget about cleansing. Make it a part of what we do at this point. It's part of our life is the libias, the cleansing, the colon cleanse, all of it. It's just what we do. Not just reserved for that one moment once out of 5 years. It's just like part of how we fortify ourselves. She's like also like the mind. Whatever we can do to strengthen the mind and be very clear with the mind when we have 10,000 thoughts happening at the same time, that kind of like attunement helps us to be attuned to this time of transition and attuned to what's being birthed out of the darkness, what is malevolent, what is benevolent, what is an opportunistic entity, what are angels and relations that are healthy and well and which are not well, and how to help take care of them. It's incredible, how many ways to heal and tend are present in our communities. And the more we choose to do that, especially those of us that are very blessed and very living life like this, that we can then support the transformation and healing of others because we'll be able to feel more And we utilize our attention towards the places that, like the Amazon as an example, that are the lungs of the earth. And we start to protect the guardians of the Amazon, and we start to support the guardians of the Amazon and make sure and support what they know how to tend to the earth so that we can breathe. But if we're too busy being distracted in the mind and allowing opportunistic entities in that are unhealthy and unwell, that we don't have the ability to pay attention to those types of things. And then but then we still feel the grief and the lamentation, and it can take us down. No more. This is our time. Okay, the final tool. Lilith is saying, there's all these very deep inquiries. One of the things that she wants to highlight at this time is the consciousness of prosperity. There's like abundance, there's prosperity, and there's wealth. And the consciousness of prosperity is a field of energy that if the more we kind of commune and attune to that, it can help support in what is called the noosphere or the noosphere. There's like the geosphere, the rock, the biosphere, and then there's the noosphere, the noosphere, the field of the thought of humanity. Because most of the time an opportunistic entity is like lacking, needs something, our unwell ancestors that are like pulling at us because they need something. The more if we choose to attune to the consciousness of prosperity in the field of imagination, it can be like a pierce, like in the never-ending story, the great nothingness is growing and Atreyu, like, Atreyu, and it pierces the great nothingness, and the light shines through. If we like feed consciousness with prosperity in the field of imagination, kind of rises up into the noosphere as a vision, and then it starts to like rain down prosperity all over. That this can like infuse the consciousness of humanity, and it can restore the soul of humanity again. Where we remember what's our nature: to collaborate, to craft, to co-shape, and make beauty in the world. So this is what the board has to tell us today.
Epic.
Just want to say thank you to the holy ones of the 8 directions and the 3 worlds, all of our benevolent, elevated ancestors, our guides, our allies, our holy guardian angels. May everything that was shared here be useful, helpful, practical, beneficial, of service to each and every one of us. And in this way, may it be an offering into the web of life on behalf of the liberation of all beings, healing what needs to be healed from the past, making genuine offerings in this present moment to create more beauty for infinite generations into the future. All connected to you, all connected to you, all connected to you. Blessed be, and so it is.
It's amazing how so many of the inquiries and answers become interwoven to the point where it's almost one question and one answer. It's really interesting. It becomes very nonlinear quickly. I like that toward the end was the emphasis on the mind. Something I don't, no pun intended, but I don't think about a lot. But I think probably the most powerful thing on my journey has been the practice of observing the mind and where it's gone and why, and keeping some reins on it. It's just like the mind has, at least mine, I don't know about anyone listening or yours, but for whatever reason, through experiences in life, probably ancestral shit too, it's like I used to have a mind that was so bent toward negativity. It was just like full-blown negativity bias all the time. And that's how I would manifest that which I didn't desire in my life because I focused so much on what I didn't want. So manifestation goes both ways. So when you said that, I was like, oh, that's a great reminder. That was like one of my earliest gifts, was to have a teacher that really emphasized that. And the way that you also expressed it through language, right? Because that's the next byproduct of whatever's in the mind is that. There's that one over there too. She's been really good about, if I don't catch the mind and then verbalize something in a way that's less than empowering, and it's really good to catch that too. Yeah, wow, how fun. I love this stuff. It's so cool.
Thank you for just feeling connected to this and, bringing it forward.
Yeah, I'm absolutely stoked. I mean, I think it's one of those things, like I was mentioning human design, it's like when I don't even know who, got that download or whatever. I don't know that much about it, but it just comes to mind because it has the visual component that's really interesting. You know there's something to that, much like what is in front of us here. But I'm sure that person had no idea that it would branch out and have such an impact on so many people, and will continue to do so, right? So it's interesting for me to sit here with you and all the years that you've put into the development of this technology and the practice and holding it in a sacred, honorable way. There'll be a point in the future where someone will watch or hear this and they'll go, oh, wow, that was the beginning of that thing, right? It's really beautiful to be able to participate in that, as it continues.
Something I find to be, I've been noticing in relations is that, like, usually you hear, my vision, I want to do this. My plan, my strategy, my business process is to do this thing, which is such a powerful practice. And lately I've been noticing in my field of relations is like, things are starting to do themselves through us. And we're kind of like, it sort of just started happening. It wasn't like the plan. The plan was over here. And then all of a sudden this thing just started happening. It's like so many of us are experiencing that. And I'm like, is this sort of like the evolutionary shift that we're going through, or we're noticing what is wanting to materialize itself through us as vehicles?
Yeah.
It's so wild.
The age of allowing.
The age of allowing.
I mean, you've heard, I'm sure, the saying that if you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans.
Totally.
Yeah, I find, I like to keep my sort of philosophy and practices pretty simple. It's the most simple principles have been the ones that have been the most impactful for me. And when I find that there's something that I want, whatever, on any level of experience, and I don't pray to God in the sense of like the Santa Claus kind of thing, but just, if I'm putting my intention behind something, I find that if I put kind of the idea, if it be thy will, right? It's like, oh, I want to go here, I want to go there, I want to do this, do that. It's like, I want it, but not unless you do, right? Speaking to consciousness itself. Surrendering like the attachment to it ahead of time, I find I'm much less disappointed. And to your point, if my life is guided in a totally new direction, invariably, wherever I arrive is way better than whatever I came up with in the beginning with my little plans and designs that I was so attached to, right?
It's so true.
Yeah. I guess it's like surrendered living is what I'm getting at, right? It's just like, it doesn't mean that no effort is put forth and that, you don't put your nose to the grindstone a bit, but I think it's the attachment to the result that is really, that's what gets you. It's like, want something, go for something.
Or inshallah, in creation, in God's willing, inshallah. Sometimes too, we like to say, when we're making a prayer, and may miracles and surprises that we love come around every corner. Like, being part of the prayer are the miracles and surprises that we love around it. I've learned to clarify that I love versus not love, because sometimes the miracles and surprises show up in all different kinds of ways.
In another dark night of the soul. Yeah. Yay, just what I wanted.
Only way out is through, the only way through is in. But mothers give birth, children, we're born, like miracles are happening every day. Like, it is a miracle every time a child is born. Like, may there be, leaving it open for miracles and surprises around every corner that we love. Blessings and disguises.
All right, tell us about your online offerings, things that you teach, do in the world, for people that want to learn more about you or learn how to do what you do, all the things, which of course we'll link to in the show notes, but I'd love to hear you describe kind of, your gifts that you share.
What I love to serve is what's called the Oracle Arts Apprenticeship. And it kind of, again, it wasn't like my idea. People asked for it, so it emerged. And it's a year-long journey into Oracle Arts, which is natural to all of us, turning on all the senses in all these different ways. And being on a journey together, taking time to be together for a year. And that's one of the primary ways that I serve community and communities. And then we have a school called the Academy of Oracle Arts that hosts teachers and wisdom carriers from all over the world, because we're at this magnificent time where, like we talked about in the beginning, where we're seeing how things are connected and or unified or very similar from a different lens. And so the school is supporting the innovation of the eternal and a school to honor the sacred arts and sciences. So that's the school, Academy of Oracle Arts. And then we have this home place called Omari, Creation in its Highest Form, where we host. We host.
You host podcasts
We
now.
host.
Some guy from Texas shows up and is like, hey, let me bring my film crew in here and do some stuff.
Yes.
Oh, it's beautiful. I love everything you're up to, and I feel so fortunate that we were directed here to this
One more
place
thing
and
too.
Yeah.
Kemet, Egypt. We pilgrimage every year to Egypt. We're going this January.
Wow. How many times have you been?
I have never counted. I'm
Huh.
going to count. I started in 2019. I started when I was 19, but then I started going regularly since 2012. So
Many times.
But it's always the first time.
I can imagine.
It's always the first time.
Yeah. Allison's had that on her bucket list for a long time. Wouldn't be surprised if we find ourselves there soon. Maybe with y'all.
Inshallah.
It seems like we have a couple of friends that go on a regular basis and are guides of sorts and things like that. And it's like the Egypt people, it's like there's a sort of tendency where it's like, oh, now you got to go with this person because they got the inside scoop. They know the guards. And I'm always like, well, who's the right person to go with? Because if you just like showed up there as a tourist, you probably would get a much less rich experience than someone who kind of knows the lay of the land and has some contacts and has a dialed in, curriculum.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. I feel really grateful. Part of why I love returning is the relationships that are strengthened. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. All right, last question for you, which is we've probably already answered it many times, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Who have been 3 teachers or teachings throughout your life that have contributed to who you are today?
Definitely my father, my dad, Clifford Anthony Guzman. There's so many nuggets that he has shared with me in my life that I still am learning from. Also, I want to acknowledge William G. Kiesel. He has been in the Hermetic tradition, I still study with him he's the one that taught me about crystal balls. So I just want to acknowledge him. And then I'd love to acknowledge Grandmother Marza Millar. As an elder, she has taught me a lot and still teaches me a lot about. I met her at a prophecy council. So she's been a big teacher for me for prophecies and a lot of indigenous families and communities that I am still in a relationship with. And then in Egypt, I want to acknowledge Mahmoud Koder. He's my son's Egyptian grandpa. He is one of the jewels of the Nile. So he's somebody that I'm so lucky that he's always like, no more Isis, no more trips to Egypt. This is my last one. I'm like, no, Mahmoud, this is not your last one. He's like, no. And I'm like, no. He's like, fine, one more. So every year I'm just hoping for one more to be with him. So I just want to acknowledge him here too.
Beautiful. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, we did it, damn it. Thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate your receptivity and openness with your gifts. And I'm so glad this wasn't something that was held so sacred that it couldn't be shared or held in a way that couldn't be shared, because I think this can be really fun. And I want to encourage people, those of you who are listening or have listened, you got to watch, because what's happening here is really beautiful and unique and definitely deserves to be seen as much as it does heard.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right, family, thanks for tuning in to The Lifestylist and making me part of your day. Now for a quick reality check. If social media pulled the plug on me tomorrow, how would we stay connected? I've been battling the Chinese Communist Party for years as they keep banning me on TikTok. And you never know how the tide might shift with Instagram or YouTube either. One wrong word and the algorithm can shut you down. That's why I've been proactive. I'm doubling down on email as one of my most reliable long-term channels of communication. But there's one new twist. Instead of me blasting the same content to everyone on my email list, now you get to choose exactly what shows up in your inbox and what doesn't. So whether it's biohacking, truth, wellness, spirituality, or my uncut take on current events, whatever lights you up the most is what you'll get. So I highly recommend you get to lukestorey.com/privatehouse, set your preferences, and enjoy a content stream based on your most important interests. There's no middleman, no algorithm, no censorship, and no spam. It's where I can speak freely and share what I actually think, and no one but you and me decides what gets seen. So again, that's lukestorey.com/privatehouse, where you can enjoy a tailored experience with bonus content you won't get anywhere else. And there's no need to even memorize that link or save it for later. You're going to see it right in this episode description on your podcast app. So hit it before you quit it. And I'll see you all in my private house.